Hello, good morning, Michael. How is it
Good
going?
morning, Alex.
Good morning.
Good, good. Really excited for today. Good
Yeah,
session will be coming. You're in
good.
the office. Looks like if you're
Yes, I'm
in
in
the
the office
office.
today. I thought, well, I should be, I
There's the
should be going there.
superpowers,
Yeah,
superpowers graph behind
that
you. That's a good
ex-
one.
the superpowers. Maybe they help for today for the session. And
Yeah,
also,
yeah.
I thought, yeah, it's a good, it's
Really
it's
cool.
it's good to be in the office every now and then. Um, Welcome everybody. Thank you for joining. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're watching this. Hoping you have a good time and your weekend was a good one. And if your Monday is already in full swing, then hope you have a good Monday. If you just more or less woke up, then good morning to you and
Started, yeah,
happy Monday. Um,
exactly. Let us know where you're watching from or where you're listening in from. So that's always cool to see all the different places that people watch the stream from.
Absolutely, yeah. How was your weekend, Michael? Before we get going.
That's a good question. So I met a friend in a park. So we just took a walk in a park, as such, which was good. And then uh, binged watched The Witcher last night. That was good as well. And otherwise, fun with the family, some relaxation. I read a full book, which was good.
You read a full book.
Yeah,
Okay.
so that was good. Very exciting.
Your weekend clearly had more days than mine.
Brandon Sanderson's Cytonic. So, for those of you that love a good sci-fi slash fantasy one, that's Brandon Sanderson is a pretty good author that I like a lot, and he's done a lot of really good books, and that's his Skyward series, and the latest book came out a
Hmm.
few weeks ago, so I read it, so that was good.
That was good. I'd never heard of that. I need to check that out.
Yeah.
I finished the book as well, but I couldn't really recommend it, so I don't. But I wasn't too amazed by it. But then I saw it through, and now I'm open for new reading material. So
So have a look. So I can give you some other titles from Brandon Sanderson as well, depending on what you're
hmm,
more interested in. So he's a really good author. I really enjoy reading his stuff.
that sounds good. Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah, I also watched The Witcher last week, which obviously I had to. I'm a big fan, so it's good.
Yeah, it's interesting. So these TV series that are on Prime and Netflix also have their ups and downs in terms of like acting and scenery and so on, but still somehow you can't let go because you want to know how it
Yeah,
continues.
yeah.
So.
When once you start it, then you kind of continue it, and then yeah. Although Witcher is, I think, one of the better ones.
Yeah, yeah, it's true. Should
It's
probably do a session once about Dark, but that would be full of spoilers probably. Then
that might be
don't
full of
know.
spoilers. Yeah. Well,
I don't know.
well.
Did you
I mean,
watch Dark
it's
back
the
then?
same
Yes.
with. I did not watch Dark, but I mean, if it's similar to what we did with Game of Thrones, I think if at some point you haven't watched it, you probably will never. So, well, I mean, and if you then still think you're spoiled, then just don't. I mean, just
Yeah,
don't watch the
you just kind of
episode.
have a big spoiler alert up front, right? So don't
Exactly,
watch this if
exactly.
you don't
Yeah,
want to be
yeah.
spoiled. Exactly. Cool. So
Yeah,
let's get
tomorrow also
started.
watch The Witcher. He's
Mhm.
also amazed that you finished the whole book. I just as I said, I don't know how many days your weekend had. Mine clearly didn't have enough time for a full book,
Yeah,
but
actually, I don't know how many pages that one had. Let me see.
only
Uh,
600, just a small book for Michael.
it was probably like 400 or something then.
Still,
Let me
I don't know.
see.
I don't know how you do that, but yeah,
Mm,
good. While you look up the page count and make us all feel even more guilty than we already feel
432.
for now. Okay, well that's so small then. It's easy. One afternoon, no problem.
Yeah. You know, these people that walk around reading books, so that's what I
Yeah.
also do when I walk around, and I also just always read
Did you hit
books
any
while walking.
lampposts?
No, that happened once to me. That was very painful, actually.
Can
My
imagine.
actually, it also happened to my daughter. She's also similar, and she's really into a book, and she also just walks around reading a book. And once she also hit a lamppost, and it's usually really painful if you wake up towards the lamppost, basically in front of your face, and you can't evade it anymore.
Yeah.
So there should be some warning built into the like Kindle device that warns you off. obstacles that I'm finding.
Yeah, it's no proximity detection built in, so you
Exactly.
have to pay attention. Maybe for the next edition of the Kindle, they give you a little beep
Yeah.
once you come close to objects.
Yeah, exactly. That would be cool.
All right, let's get going. All right, let me share my screen here for a second. As I said, we are, or I didn't say so far, but this is the Discovering Neo4j AuraDB free session with Michael and myself. What are we doing today is go a little bit hands-on with AuraDB free. I don't think as much as we used to today, but we will still go there. I'll quickly show and explain what AuraDB free is exactly. We usually pick a data set. So today's session is a little bit different, but generally we pick a data set. If you have a data set you'd like us to explore, please let us know. You can reach us on Twitter, Discord, and anywhere else, or just put it here in chat. If you have something ready, we have a look at that and we can incorporate it in one of our next sessions. Then we think about what kind of questions we will ask from that data set and how we evolve that. That gives us basically a data model. And then we load and query, obviously, and get the data going, and then write a couple of Cypher queries and see how easy it is to get started with that, and that everybody can do it. AuraDB free, quickly, is the free version of AuraDB. So if you go on neo4j.com/aura, I'll post a link in chat in a second, then you get there, and then you have three options: AuraDB free, professional, and enterprise. And AuraDB free is on the very left-hand side, and then you basically just get that for free. It has some limitations, but generally it is a full edition of a Neo4j instance, and it's also basically yours forever. So you can just load it up or start it up, put some data in, start going with it, and then discover some more, and then learn with it as well. So it's a very good segue to get started with Neo4j in general. The limitations are 50,000 nodes and 175,000 relationships. So it's a smaller set, what you can do and what you are allowed to do with it. But I think it's plenty, and it's enough to get started with most of the things you want to do. And then if you decide, okay, this is good, this is fun, I'm getting there, but I need more space, then you can always upgrade from your DB from your AuraDB free instance. You have obviously access to Neo4j browser as well as to Neo4j Bloom. If you want to know what Neo4j Bloom is, we did a stream just last week on all the new features of Bloom 2.0, which has been launched end of 2021. So have a look at that. As I said, free forever, and link is coming in chat in a second. And today we're gonna look at slightly different. That's what I said in the beginning. The Neo4j data importer. We're gonna explain that, and we show that, but we also go into AuraDB a little bit, but not as much maybe as we used to. Is that right, Michael?
Yes, that's right. And actually, I'm pasting just now the links to our previous sessions and the write-ups that we've been doing for those. So for those of you that missed any of our past sessions, then feel free to have a look at those as well.
Perfect.
Yeah, but today, a preview of the upcoming data importer tool, which I'm really excited about because it's been a long time coming, and I've been working quite hard to make it reality and work with product engineering, and I'm really excited about it because it will enable a lot of people have a much easier time getting data into Neo4j, and that's a really good really important starting point, right? So if you have example data sets from someone else, that's kind of okay, but of course it's best if you have your own data that you can work with, right? And then making it easier to get your own data into the graph database is a big benefit as such, right? So and then so the data importer so far kind of focuses on CSV data. We'll be adding more data formats in the future, but there are some easy tools where you can take data from relational databases or non-relational databases, turn it into export it as CSV. You can export Excel or Google Sheets into CSV files. You can convert JSON with GQ or something like that into CSV. So at least it gives you a good starting point until there are more data formats supported. And it's really easy and straightforward. And I just want to show you today with 3 examples on how to use it. And then if you have questions in between, feel free to shoot as such. So let me share my screen.
That's good. Let me get that on.
Super. So first of all, let's create our Aura free database. So you go to Neo4j AuraDB, click on databases and create a database. Then you can select AuraDB free, data import the region that's closest to you. For me, that's Belgium. And because we want to use the data importer tool, we use a blank database here. And I just click on create database, and it takes 2 to 3 minutes to create a database. So we just leave this open. I'll copy the password and put it somewhere, unlike last time when I forgot to do that. I just paste it here in my terminal for the time being. And we'll come back to this later on. Okay, in terms of examples, I have 2 simple examples and one that's a little bit more involved. I have here some movie data, basically a bunch of movies, a bunch of people, so actors and directors with their names, bios, and additional information. And then information on who acted in which movie and who directed which movie. So pretty straightforward data as such. And I also have an denormalized file that we want to look at later, which is pretty large. And we can look at that in step 2 of this. Okay, so for the data importer, if you go to dataimporter.graphapp.io, that's where we have the current alpha version, to say so, of the data importer. So that's not fully released, but I still want to show it because I think it's really valuable as such. I just pasted that into the stream so you can also tag along. So, and basically, using the tool is in 3 steps. First of all, you can drop your CSV files. So I just pick acted in, directed movies and persons for this example, and just can drag and drop them over here. But you could also browse and add them via your file browser as well. And then you see the files, and each file has a bunch of columns, and the first row is shown as an example. So you see what it contains. You can fold them in as such when you're done with them, and you can also remove them here again if you don't need them anymore. Okay, so that's kind of getting the CSV files in. I used it with pretty large CSV files. So when we built the tool, we said, okay, at most like 100,000 to 1 million data points should be the limit. Like I said, constraints for us to work with, and so we don't. So this tool is really focused on people that want to get some data in to begin using Neo4j. Right? It's not like for the professional ETL enterprise setup. Then there are other tools like proper ETL tools that have schedulers and runtimes and servers and cron jobs and you name it, and delta loading and CDC and all these things. That's not what this tool is really to begin getting data into the graph. Okay, and now in the middle here, if you ever used Arrows, so you saw that we used Arrows quite a lot, so arrows.app. In the past for data modeling, like here's our last Hamilton data model, then the data importer is actually straightforward to use because it basically embeds a version of Arrows here in the middle. So we can say we have our first node that we call movie or type movie. And then we have basically a person node, and a person acted in the movie. So we have the relationship, so we can drag out here from the halo of the node, we can drag out a relationship and then connect nodes or create new nodes from that. You can also click on a relationship and reverse direction with this, because the person is related to the movie. And if I double click, then I can add here the acted in relationship. I can also drag just from the person to the movie a new relationship and say this is directed, and I can also add the type for the relationship over here. That also works. So that's kind of our graph model, right? So basically what we have as a structure. And then the next step is basically mapping the CSV files to this graph model. Right, so let's start with the person node, and what you go on the right side here is the mapping file, and I will just select the person CSV, and then we have this kind of shortcut that says add from file, and we can basically select which fields you want to add from the file, and I say just all, so all are selected. I say confirm, and then it basically provides here me with the, let me make this a little bit smaller, with the fields, right? So person, TMBD is string, bio, born in, died, so the year, IMDb, IB, name, poster. So for the IDs, I could convert them into integers, but I'll just leave them for now as a string because that's not really important.
You would just have to click on that little edit button.
Exactly,
here.
then you could change this. So in the edit button, you can change this field here at the beginning. So for instance, if I don't want to call this person underscore TMBD ID, I can just also call it TMBD ID, for instance. So I can also rename things as well. Or if I want to say here that this is the IMDb from the IMDb database ID or poster, so I don't need to have the person prefix in here, for instance. And for the URL as well. And I could change the data type, so we'll see this in the movie file where we change some of these. And this automatically maps these. You can also add properties manually that you then basically map to something in the file. So imagine we had not mapped the bio here as such. Then we could say we add a property ourselves called, come on.
It's at the
at the bottom. We add the property bio ourselves. And then in mapping, we would basically say bio is not mapped yet, and we need to map it to basically here manually. But that's of course much more tedious than the auto mapping. So usually you would do the auto mapping anyway. And you always also see the fields that are renamed here are still mapped to the column from the file here. So if I go to people here over here, you see that's the columns in the people file. And you also see which ones have been mapped. They get a green checkbox. So it's also nice to see how far have I gotten, am I good here or not, right? So that's also really nice. And then the last important step is kind of to select an ID property, because if you want to connect relationships and other nodes, then you want to have the ID property. And if I look at my other files, for instance, my directed and acted in files, I see that it uses the TMBD ID. So I use this as our ID field for the person. And then we see a person gets a blue check mark. So it's fully mapped, including ID. Right, so if I don't select an ID, then it doesn't get the check mark as such.
So the ID is basically the one unique identifier across all the CSV files. So that,
exactly. So per file, right? So it's not across all the files, but it's basically in each file it's unique. But of course, the number can repeat in for instance, in movie IDs, right? So, but it's basically for the person it's unique, and for the movie it's unique. In the future, there will also be support for multi-key IDs, but for now, we basically constrain this for the MVP as a single ID. So you have multiple IDs in your CSV, then you have to pre-process and concatenate them into one field for the time being. Okay, then we do the same for movie, basically. We again select our file, movie CSV, we say add from file, select all, and you see here we have a bunch more, and we can basically also see there are some numbers in here like the budget, IMDb rating, the votes, and revenue, and runtime, and the year, right? So we can basically turn those into numbers as such. So let's do that. Budget is float, Yes. Then we had the rating. It's also a float. Votes is an integer. Then what else did we have? We had runtime, which I think was also
Be
an
an
integer.
integer. Yeah.
So that's quite good that you can see the preview here on the left side, so you can
Yeah.
at least remember what it is. The year was also an integer, or we can keep it as a string, but it's better for some operations to have it as a year. And then what the tool does not support, which also would kind of get more advanced, is basically, so you see that the genres here are basically pipe separated lists. So that's something that we would need to do in post-processing to take these genres and pull them out into extra nodes.
I see.
But that's something that we can do afterwards. And then we again have our ID. So in this case, it's the movie ID. So we select movie ID here as an ID field, and our movie gets the blue check mark as well. Right. So and then we see also that everything in movie is also mapped. So we can also fold these in when they are mapped, so that we see, okay, they're done basically. And all that's left is basically mapping the two relationships, which is pretty straightforward because they have only two fields. So we say from person is the person TMB ID to movie, the movie ID. So we can map this and we can add properties from files. So we already see movie ID and the person ID are already taken, and we can add the role as an additional acted in property here as well. So for instance, the character that an actor played in the movie, right? And for directed, and it gets also the blue check mark if it's done. Right. So if I miss something and start the importer, so I will get an error and says, please fix your mapping as well. And here, again, the same. We map this, and there's no extra property. So if you look at this, so that's basically for directed. Cool.
Nice.
And this gives us our model with our CSV file system mapping, and that's about it, right? So and that was all
Super
I had to
easy.
do to map the model, which is really nice. And then if I click run import, I can provide the connection details. So we have our password that I can pick from the Oracle thing here again. That's the password. Then I need to click continue. So we have our data import graph is here. So we can put in this connection URL as well, and then basically we click run. And then here, up here, you see a little progress bar, and then it takes 2 seconds in total to import the data, which is really nice. So it created 93 nodes, 444 people, and 370 relationships were acted in, and 99 relationships for directed. And you also see how many properties were set for each of those. And if we now look into our database, open with the browser, then I need to copy my password again from over here. Yes. Or with Bloom as well, right? So we could also just open it with Bloom. Here for the username and our password. So, and then if you look at this, we see we have our nodes here, our relationships here, and if you look at our graph, we have all the beauty included as such, right? And if you look at an
Looks
individual
about
node,
right.
if you look at an individual node, okay, we also see that all these things are imported. We also see that, for instance, the votes are an integer. So if you hover over these fields, then it shows you actually the data type as well. Right, so the integer and float conversion also worked. The only thing that's kind of left for us is to pull out these genres as such. Right, so if you want to do this, then it's pretty straightforward. We find our movies. We see that the movies have this genres, plural field, which is a pipe concatenated field. So basically we take our movies, we take the indoor genres field, we split it by pipe. So we get a list of strings, basically one for each. And then we can unwind this into rows. So each of these strings would become a row from the list. And then we create the genre. And the name is our genre. And then we merge the relationship between the movie and, in our case, and to the genre. So, and to make it a little bit fast, we can also create a constraint on G.name is unique. So it creates a constraint and an index for that. Okay. So, and so to see what it does, basically, we can also just see what returns here. So if I return n, end title. So it does one row per genre, and then we just limit 20 or something like that. So we see Toy Story has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 genres. So each genre becomes a row, and then we just connect the two. So we create a genre and connect the two. That's the post-processing. So it just did this, and now it has this genre relationship, and so we see that now all our movies have also a genre node. So that's some post-processing that we can do after the import. Or a similar thing. So if you have similar things where you need to post-process something because it's a data format that's not yet supported or something like this, then that at least leaves you only this bit post-processing to do that you don't need to do upfront. Cool. So there are some two cool other features in Data Importer that I want to show you. First of all, it also can show you the queries that it used to create the data. So it also uses best practices, basically creating constraints on the unique ID and then sending a batch of records to the database and merges on the ID only and then sets the additional fields as such. Right, and so for each of these, you can basically see the statements that are used to import it.
That's cool.
If you want to use this yourself, you basically just replace the unwind with a load CSV from your ls rel record, and then basically the rest is the same as such, right? So that's something that we'll add in the future. Is kind of also add a version where you can see a load CSV version of these statements as well. You can also download the file, then you get a big JSON file with all the detailed larger ones that might be interesting for debugging, or if you want to keep the stuff around as well. It also stays there, so if I go back here to the book, then I see this as well. The other cool feature is here in this model button, you have you can clear the model, so that removes all your mappings and all your files. That's not what I want to do. You can export the model, so you can say I want to export this model here. And then if I go to my downloads folder, I see the model, which is just basically a JSON of our mapping, which I can also import again. So I can also import the model again and load the files again, and then I can get it together. But what's even better is I can also export a zip which actually contains the CSV files and the mapping in one go, which I can also share with other folks. So for instance, you map the data and you want to share this. So for instance, for one of our sessions like today, we want to share this zip data, which is basically just a zip of the model JSON and the CSV files, right? So you can also look into it. But then if I say clear model, so now all my hard work is gone. I can actually say import zip, just pick the zip file from here, and it imports it all again, and I have all the mapping and everything back. Right,
Yeah,
so
that's
it's
very
also a
cool.
good way of sharing, and you can even provide URL parameters. I don't have them, know them by heart, but you can share this later in the blog post, what URL parameters look like. So you could even put a model zip on GitHub, and then you can basically use that as such. So I think I started, or I tried to do this. So I actually did it here a while ago. So for Northwind, we even have the zip on GitHub as well. Okay.
That's super cool because if you then imagine sharing this with somebody that is not as technical, and then they want to explore some stuff in Bloom, then you give them the zip, say, hey, click here and import, and then basically import this and then launch Bloom on, which is fairly easy to do
Exactly,
if you have
and
the Aura
and
DB
then you
instance
can
on top.
have exactly, and then you have a no code or low code, basically way of getting data in the graph and exploring it without actually having to teach or learn Cypher
Exactly.
from the start, right? So you can
Yeah.
still learn it afterwards when you see that the graph database adds you value, but I think that's a super powerful combination, the data importer and Bloom together for
Yeah.
non-technical people, especially as they often have data in spreadsheets and so on that they could actually import and then explore with Bloom as such, right? So so that I can imagine this is super powerful tool as
Yeah.
such, and then I can just say movie person in Bloom and show me everything.
Or,
Right,
or if you imagine you are a data scientist who is keen on running algorithms but doesn't want to be bothered with importing data, then this is a very good way to get that going.
Yeah, exactly. So I can also refresh this. So I have my genre as well. So I can add genre as well, and then I can also add my genre to movie. So let's see. Exactly. So I can see the full graph as well, and you already see, okay, do the genres, for instance, cluster movies. So I can also say clear scene, and I just want to see genre in movies. So you can also see, do my genres cluster movies, for instance, right? So probably select for movie, not the movie ID, but titles
Title
down here.
second to, yeah.
Hello?
Didn't you refresh?
Caption? Oh, that's weird. Person, we probably won't have name. So I'm actually not sure why it's not showing the title here. Let me try this again. Sorry. Clear scene. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Yes.
So there was some hiccup.
Yep.
Right. So you can basically see this, and also style it, of course, with icons and ranges and so on. So for instance, you could size the movies by budget or something like that, right? So we could say rule-based styling, sized on budget. Then nowadays there's this histogram, which is really nice. You can say, okay, I want to use these sizes here, and or do a range basically between those, and then size. And I want to say, okay, the really large movies get really large, and then I apply the size, and then you see basically how the different movies relate in terms of budget. Right, so that's a quick insight.
Cutthroat Island was very expensive.
You can correlate, yeah, you can correlate this to genres, for instance. Are there certain genres that have especially expensive movies and so on?
Yeah.
Okay, but we didn't want to do so much exploration today, so let me go back.
It was just so easy, and then you.
Yeah, exactly. The other thing that I wanted to show you is the following. So this was now normalized data, right? So where we had one CSV file per type as such. So, and imagine we had a denominalized file. So for instance, I have here this movie data acted. So it's one file that has all the movies, all the people and that acted in those movies in one file. So it's 20 megabytes of data. And so you see we have the movie ID, title, and so on, but we also have the person information like born and died and on, right? So we basically need to correlate them through that, right? And then what we would do is we would again select our file for mapping, but we would select the same file multiple times to say so, right? So for instance, for person now, sorry. So we have originally no properties, and we would say add from file, and then we would scroll down and say, okay, what are all the person properties? Bio, born in, died, IMDb, IB, this one, poster, and so on. Confirm. And we probably change our things again. And TMBD ID was poster and URL. So we mapped a portion of the file to the person, basically, right? And then we had our TMBD ID as an ID, this one. Right, so our person is mapped, but you see of the file, we only have half the properties basically mapped here as such, right? So we basically pick the movie again. Let me just remove for the time being these properties. So I can also map the existing properties manually to the file, but it's just faster to take them from here. So movie ID, title, budget, countries.
This list was there because you did not
from the model that we already had from the previous run. Exactly. Then we had created a new one, then it would have not been there.
Yeah.
Movie poster, revenue, runtime, movie URL, year, genres. Okay. And so I could do the conversions again. I'll leave this for now because you've done it already, so you know what it looks like. And we again select movie ID as our primary key or as our ID property, and then we need to map the acted in again from for the person it's person TMBD ID to movie ID, and we would add the role as the property here. All right. So we have our role property down here. Okay, and then we can run the import again, basically, right? So I can go to my Aura database here and clean out the database. Detach. So it's empty now. Nothing in there anymore. So if I run anything, there's nothing in there anymore. And I can use the single denormalized file and run the import for this one as well. And you see it takes a little bit longer because the file is bigger and it's much more duplicate data that we need to sort out. But not by much. So instead of 2 seconds, it took 20 seconds now. But you also see that it sent the 20 megabyte file several times, basically, through. It does some pre-filtering and optimizations locally, but it still needs to push on the browser, basically these 20 megabytes 3 times through processing and over the wire, basically. And now if we go to our graph again, we see, oh, it's also much bigger in terms of movies and so on. I think it has.
Yes, I saw. I just see that there's 15,000.
Yeah, exactly. So it's
more than
also
the 400
much more data in there,
we had before.
So it's 5,000 movies, And so that's why it also takes longer, and 9,000
Yeah,
people. So it's before
I
we
guess
had
that's
only
the
like a small
yeah, that's the
version,
full yeah.
and this is like a full movie database. Not a fully full movie database, but much more
But yeah,
in there, right? So for instance, if you say, let's see for the movies, what's the year distribution, for instance, n dot year, comma count star, order by year, descending. Sorry, n dot year descending. So there's also some hiccup in the data, so we would have to clean this up as well. But you see that it has much more movie data
because the
per year
data,
in here.
I guess that's because we just imported the year as a string.
No, it's in the CSV, I think. So there
Okay.
was some hiccup when exporting this data was done through JavaScript, and it turned our numeric values into floating point things. But
Okay.
it's something that we can also fix in post-processing, right? So we can just
Yeah.
also say set n dot year equals to integer von n dot year, and hopefully, yeah. So, and if you do this now, if you do this now again, it should be fine, right?
Yeah.
So
Cool.
we can convert this basically as a post-processing thing again. Okay, that's this. And the next one that I wanted to show you is, we have a few more minutes to go. Let me just create a new database and already be free. And you can drop the other one. Belgium blank. Yes, copy and just paste this in here for time being. So it creates this database, and we clean out our model here, clear model. And Northwind is interesting because it's much more involved as a model, right? So if I look at my CSVs here, so I have a Neo4j graph examples, which are all the data sets that we use for Sandbox and desktop and so on. There are everything from Offshore Leaks database to Northwind to recommendations, Twitch, crime detection, entity resolution, cybersecurity, and so on. There's lots of example data sets, Stack Overflow, and so on. And in the Northwind data set, there are also the CSV files in the Northwind import folder. And I'll just have them here locally, here. So I have just the CSV files here, and so I can just drop them into the data importer. Let me do this. And now I can model my data for Northwind, right? So I say in the core of my retail data set, there's an order, or let's say there's a product. Let's start with the product, and which is, we can actually look at the data model here as well. Right, so we have a product that's a part of a category, supplied by supplier, and then orders a product. So we can basically say that's how the product maps. So we select our products, CSV, we add everything from the file except for supplier, category, and that's it. Confirm, and we select our product ID as ID field. And then we said we have the supplier which supplies this product, and we turn the relationship direction around, and we map the supplier real quick, just to show you what it would look like for a real world data set. Supplier ID, and then we map this via the products file, where we have from supplier, which is here, to product, which is here, and then we have this mapped. Then we say product is part of the category, and we map the categories here. And we map category name, category, and description. I don't want to map the binary data here, so I leave it at this. And category ID is our primary key, and this is part of. And we select again our products file, and we map from product ID to category ID. So I hope in the future we can also automate some of these steps as well, so that they become even more straightforward. For the automation, some of the stuff you can guess, some of the things you might also guess wrong. So it's a little bit a fine line to walk as such. So then we have, of course, our order, right? The order set in the data model set orders. So it could also be ordered or contained or something like that. And our orders are in the orders file. And we add everything except for the customer, the employee. Ship via is the shipper. Okay. And we select our order ID as primary key. And then we can basically pull out the shipper. And the shipper is, of course, shippers. We add our stuff from the file, select the ID, map from orders, from order ID to ship via ships. Can probably also flip this around. Then we had a customer. And then can call this, for instance, buys or bought or something like that. And we would select the customer files for the customers.
You selected now the
sorry, it wasn't wrong. This one for the customers. And we select everything for the customer. So we could discuss pulling out the address, but for the simple example, I'll just leave it in here. And select customer ID. So the customer that's in the orders file. Again, the customer ID. So customer ID to order ID. So then we have this. Then we had also the employee over here. Employee. That's also in orders. And we say, sorry, that's not in orders, that's in employees. And employee have also a lot of stuff, including address, postal codes, and so on. I'll skip the photo, and I skip the reports too. And of course, you could also change, as you've seen, some of these things are. So you could probably turn some of those into numeric fields and so on. But I think for employee it was actually okay. So we take the employee. What's also quite nice is with Arrow, it also supports self-relationships. So if I do something like this, pull out our relationship, then I get a self-relationship, and we can say this is an reports to relationship because we had in here the manager as well in employees. So we map from employee ID to reports to is the manager ID. Right? So which is nice. And so self-relationships of a node are also supported. And then here you can say this employee sold this order. And then in the orders, that's all order details. So we could decide to turn order details into like a line item node, but I just wanted to demonstrate that we can also do rich relationships here that have more details. So we map from order to product and then add the other relationships from the file. So unit price, quantity, and discount. So unit price and quantity, unit price and discount would be integers. Down here, unit price. No, unit price is float, quantity is integer, and discount is probably also float as well. So we have this order information. And here for employee sold in order, that's also in orders. So we have employee ID to order ID. So what else do we have in our model here? We map this, we map this, we map this, we map this. So there's also regions and territories. So basically employees are in certain regions. So we can basically model the company structure as well. So employee is in a region, I think, which is then in a territory, if I was not mistaken. Yeah. So which should be our last two files to map. Oops. Select all. ID is region ID, territories are these. It's the territory in territory. So, and these are the territories from region to territory. That's a region, and then we had an employee in region where we mapped the employee territories file from employee ID. Oh, that's to territory. Okay, so this is wrong. So I need to delete this. So it's actually employee is in territory. And then we can rename this here into in region and flip it around. So it points from territory to region actually. So display. Sorry for that. And then we map our employee territories from employee ID to territory ID. And then what's left? This is mapped, this is mapped, this is mapped. So we mapped the whole Northwind dataset in roughly 10 minutes or so. Right. So that was fast mapping. And then, of course, because we want to save our data, we would also export the zip of this. So we have it for the future, right? So either the model or the zip. And then we can run the import. So we get our new Aura database that we just created. Copy this password again. And we need a new connection URL, Northwind. This one. Here we go. Run import. So the other thing that I really would love to see is if you have more like a full interactive progress, so where it shows which file is it currently running and so on. So it now imported all the Northwind data in 8 seconds. So I mean, these files are not large. It's more the complexity of it, right? So that it handles.
Yeah.
So and if we open this with a Neo4j browser, let's close the movie once. Then we need to copy our password from over here, and come on. So and here's our full
Here we go.
Northwind database. And again, we can look at the whole database in Bloom as well. Neo4j password. So, and we see that our central thing is order. So we could also just say in our Bloom instance, we search order. Select all the orders. Select all the orders and say expand all. And that would fetch us all the whole database basically with everything, right? So all the orders, all the products, everything, right? So we could also instead clear. We could also say It's a dairy products or something like that. Category name. Should actually have an index. Oh no, because we didn't create an index on it. Okay. So then let's just pick a bunch of categories. So that's the other post-processing thing that we would have to do, is kind of create indexes for certain fields. So that's something I also think we're gonna add to the importer tool that allows you to generate indexes as well, not just constraints, but also indexes. So I just changed the captions to the names, customer, company name here. So, and so this is something that we probably need to talk to the Bloom team about. So why it does not update the so now we have our categories here. And so if we, for instance, could say we select the dairy products, dismiss the other nodes, and then basically expand all the products that are in the dairy category, and then we can basically, from these products, we can go to the orders or customers as well. Or we can say, okay, let's pick Gorgonzola and expand all the orders. And these are all the Gorgonzola orders, and then you can basically select all the Gorgonzola orders, and then see who ordered it, Gorgonzola basically, right? So all the customers. So, and that's kind of investigation. Königlich essen.
Very good.
Die wandernde Kuh. Really
Good.
cool. Save a lot markets. Ortelius Käseladen. Really nice. Lots of German. Richter Supermarkt.
Very good.
Okay.
Good. Gorgonzola is in high demand, I guess.
High demand, exactly. Volk auch fair. HB. Volk auch fair. HB. Yeah, so that's then how you can export the data, of course. Yeah, and that's our quick overview of our data importer. If you go to dataimporter.graphapp.io, you can get the current version of it and can play around. And what we love to hear is feedback. So if you have any feedback, comments, anything, let us know. Oh, there's one more important thing that I almost forgot. We also launched a new Graph Academy course. So let me just sign into it. So we also launched a new Graph Academy course about data import in Neo4j. So there's here in the beginner section, a little bit hidden, importing CSV data into Neo4j. And this course also explains and introduces the data importer. So if you need a little bit more handholding and help with that, then this course helps you as well with getting your hands on data importer, having some example data sets here in this section, having some example data sets and working with that tool. It also has some introduction video, so it explains how it works and so on. So it's a little bit more explanatory as well. So that's the other important thing that I wanted to share, is basically that we have these really useful Graph Academy courses now. This one and the other new one.
The others are also great. I mean, this is a great way to start and get going. So if you are new and if you want to learn how to get going, then start with the Neo4j fundamentals and work your way through it. They look nice, they feel nice, they have nice challenges, little tasks to do them, and then you get some feedback.
Very interactive.
Very interactive, exactly. So it's a nice.
Exactly, and the data importer course and the building Neo4j application with Node.js are the latest two courses. Which basically in this one you build an IMDb clone as such, which is also really nice, with a really nice UI and so on. So definitely check out the Graph Academy courses, and you find them at graphacademy.neo4j.com. And of course, here we also would love feedback as well.
Yeah, let us know. Yeah,
Well, I'll put this.
I,
Oh no,
I
you
did.
already
I
put
did.
it
I did
into.
already.
Super.
Yeah. There was one more question. Maybe we can quickly answer that before we wrap. From Jewel, unable to connect to NeoVis. Is that? I guess that's not available on Neo4j Aura DB, is it?
I mean, NeoVis.js.
Or maybe I don't know if you talk. Jewel, let us know. I mean, I don't know. Do you try to do
So
that in desktop or in?
yeah, NeoVis is a front end visualization library, and which uses the Bolt connection. And the only thing that I could imagine is that the driver version of the Neo4j driver might be a little bit old. It's 4.10, so the current version is 4.4. So if you try to update Neo4j driver in package.json, that could, for instance, help. So that's probably something that should be done here.
Yeah, and thanks for the comments. So now we're gonna see that it's happening.
Oh my god, dependency.
Another N missing. Yeah, exactly.
Typing on the screen, right? So okay, cool.
Okay.
Hope that helped.
Cool.
Super. Yeah, please try it out, and we'd love feedback. Also, if it works for your models. If you want to share some public model data, just use export zip and share the zip files with us. And as I said, I already put one into the Northwind one, so you should be able to just take in the import folder here, this one, and use this directly as well.
So basically, you can go there and download this, and then click on the Neo4j data import, and then you're good to go.
Exactly. So if I just download this, okay, clear my model here.
By the way, when you click on clear model, maybe it should give you a prompt saying,
yeah, that's already into.
Do you want to do that?
Yeah, that's already into do.
Yeah.
So, and if I load this, let's see. Yeah. So
here we
it
go.
loads all the CSVs and all the. So basically, what we've just done. I could have saved all the clicking, but I wanted to show you how.
But exactly, it's
how straightforward it actually is, even for a semi-complex data model to map the data as well, right?
No.
Exactly.
Nice. Very good.
So that's really nice. Cool. Thank you all.
Thank you all for watching. Thank you, Michael, for showing us again through this. Yeah, let us know if you have any question. If you try this out, would be nice to see what your experiences are, and and if you have any feedback for us. Did you break anything? Did anything surprise you, or did something work really great? And then also that is good feedback. Yeah. With that, I think we're done for today. We will be back on. I will be back on Wednesday for another stream on a knowledge graph, music themed. So stay tuned for that. That's Wednesday afternoon, Central European time. Hope to see you then. Until that, have a great week. You all take care, stay safe, and talk to you soon.
Have fun,
Thank you very much, Michael. Take care.